Honored Custos, honored opponent, dear audience. Many of us may recall meaningful moments of singing in our childhood. We may remember the surroundings or feelings connected with those moments. Childhood memories and experiences are personal and unique, and so are singing experiences, which involve many feelings and connect with multiple situations, places, people, communities, and cultures. I have memories of my childhood in Argentina, singing in the garden, around flowers, surrounded by elder trees, improvising songs, and often playing my guitar. I remember the emotions that arose when I invented new songs that emerged from my imagination, and when I was singing together with friends. Over the last decades, music educators have studied children's singing mainly from the perspective of effective vocal skill development or vocal pedagogy, or by approaching children's cultures through song repertoires. These approaches reflect the dominant tendency in the field to value the results or the products of vocal development. However, little is known about the meanings that young children themselves ascribe to singing and their experiences of singing in increasingly diversifying educational and social contexts. Therefore, in my doctoral research, I have taken children's perspectives as the starting point and shift the focus to understanding their own experiences. My doctoral research has been based on the idea that in order to understand what singing means for the children, we need to listen to their stories with genuine interest and learn about their life experiences. It offers an interdisciplinary framework to understanding young children singing as perceived by the children themselves. The framework has been conceptualized as children singing ecologies, using Uri Bronfenbrenner's ecological theorization as the starting point. By children singing ecologies, I refer to the intrinsically intertwined connections and relationships that grow out of children's singing experiences within and across the ecologies and ecosystems in which they live, such as home, schools, and the wider community and society. The research question that has guided the process is: what meanings do children ascribe to singing within their ecologies? According to the perspective of childhood studies, childhood is not a singular event, but a manifold and multi-layered phenomenon. Just as children have many different ways to relate to the environment, they also have different relationships to singing. Thus, children's singing ecologies are unique and individual. These ecologies are constituted by children's life experiences within their temporality and relationality. Different values, visions of the world, conceptions of childhood, and the many places that children occupy in society affect how adults perceive, understand, and treat children. In rapidly culturally diversifying societies such as Finland, these processes are manifested in children's daily lives and in their experiences. The ecological framework for children's singing developed in this research illuminates the complexity of the phenomenon of singing. It constructs a new interdisciplinary understanding of singing and children's voices in educational and social contexts, and help us move beyond the preconceived conception of children's vocal development to embrace broader socio-ecological aspects of children's singing that connect with their lived experiences. Understanding children's singing ecologies can also help teachers deploy the full potential of singing to strengthen children's agency and public political voices in culturally diverse schools. Such an understanding takes into account not only the functional but also the existential qualities of singing. This broader ecological framework for singing follows the change in perspective that has already been advocated for in educational research, to reconsider what education means rather than what it produces. In other words, what singing means for the children rather than what it produces. In this study, the concept of children's singing ecology was theoretically developed through 4 interconnected dimensions. First, the ecology of children's development and its constituent process as an existential matter. Second, the political voice of children examined through the production of space and the power relationships embedded in diverse spaces in children's everyday lives. Third, singing as affordances for the children's ecological agency. And fourth, through social ecological systems thinking, which allows considering the school as a bridging organization in a culturally diversifying society. The concept of children's spaces, drawn from childhood studies, was used to conceptualize the core of understanding singing ecologies and the potential of singing as an affordance in schools. The empirical material of the research was generated in an ethnographic framework. I spent a period of 4 months in one culturally diverse school in the capital area of Finland. I interviewed the children who were first graders and 6-7 years old at that time. The interviewed children's native languages were Arabic, Finnish, Russian, Vietnamese, Albanian, Estonian, Portuguese, Niger-Congo, Indonesian, and English. During that time, I observed the children inside the classroom and also in the schoolyard and other school spaces. I also interviewed the children's teachers, who provided a perspective that helped me contextualize the children's stories and understand the school's culture and the pedagogical principles and motivations for engaging students in singing activities. Methodologically, I lean on a researcher-participant co-construction of narrative. This means that when interviewing the children, I encourage a dialogue conversation with them, not simply to support the fluidity of the interview, but also to create a sense of safety and trust during the interview. Narrative analysis methods were combined with thematic analysis within an ecological framework. I utilized Polkinghorne's narrative approach to gain an in-depth understanding of the children's individual stories and the variety of their engagements with singing. 11 children's stories were constructed, of which 7 were selected for this dissertation because of the diversity of children's experiences and voices and the meanings of singing they illustrate. The interviews revealed that young children aged 6 and 7 know how their singing relates to their social ecological relationships and can reflect verbally on their experiences. During the interviews, the children describe their contextualized singing interactions in different locations, such as home, school, natural surroundings such as the forest, the park and the neighborhood, traveling, either on public transport or in the family car, in their hobbies, and at a shop or other commercial places. They situated themselves in these contexts and described their interactions. They explained how they produce spaces of trust and freedom through singing, in order to handle everyday life struggles, how they create new ways of acting and participating while singing, and how they exercise their political voice by addressing their stance. They not only describe the physical location of their singing, their own feelings associated with these locations, and the presence or absence of other beings and the nature of and their interactions, but also explain the influence of these factors on their agency and their own possibilities or impossibilities of action and voice. During the interviews, it became evident that the question of where children sing was intimately associated with the question with whom they sing, or what the specific location of singing affords. I realized that the physical place was not as relevant as the qualities of the relationships provided by the environment, who was present, and how the specific social space affords singing. Some children recognized that there are places that are not good for singing, and they reflected on the limitations on singing that were imposed from the outside. For example, in classrooms, when children are supposed to be quiet and sing only if teachers request it. Children also describe how they search for alternative ways to sing, hum, or even think about singing in these contexts. In other words, they create in-between spaces in the school, for example, by singing in the schoolyard or by humming in secret inside the classroom. Children, therefore, create their own singing spaces which operate under children's rules and not under adults' regulations and instructions. The existential qualities of singing were evident in how the children describe their experiences of singing and the meanings they ascribe to singing, both in general and in specific situations. Importantly, children's perspectives deviated from the school curriculum, which guides teachers to focus on repertoire selection and individual vocal proficiency. Moreover, as described by the children, singing does not just occur in concrete places and spaces, but it is also affected by the constituent sense of place. Children's possibilities or impossibilities for action are therefore affected by the sociocultural, structural, and ecological factors present in the environment. The educational theorist Gerd Biesta has explained how place and meaning are related to each other, and I quote him: "Places are not just physical location, although they are that as well, and also not just ecosystems to which living organisms are more or less adapted and adjusted. The places where human lives take place are imbued with meaning for those who act within and through them." End of quote. While describing their singing in general, the children who participated in my study were well aware of the meanings of singing at school and recognized the different approaches to singing and songs inside and outside school. For example, some of the children reflected on the lack of movements associated with singing in school. They consider school songs as the teacher's songs, or the songs that teachers teach, and had learned to accept the teacher's song selections without questioning. The findings of this study also demonstrate that children navigate between public and private singing, a distinction that is seldom recognized in music education. In this study, the concept of children's spaces was instrumental in understanding children's singing spaces as participatory and meaningful locations where the children exercise their agency in and through singing. The concept of children's singing spaces, in contrast with places, perceive children as competent and agentic individuals who can take action in their lives and their ecologies. If children's participation can bridge places and spaces, singing as a participatory activity can potentially enrich the quality of children's participatory experiences. The findings suggest that singing spaces, as spaces created by the children themselves for themselves, provide them with a frame of action from where they can raise their voices and influence their own lives. In other words, children's singing spaces provide a space for negotiating roles and learning about oneself in and through interactions with others. In singing spaces, children interact, negotiate, and construct meaning. As the French sociologist Henri Lefebvre has explained, by creating social spaces, people constitute themselves as subjects. At the same time, they are also produced by the spaces they inhabit and the power relations embedded in those spaces. I claim that the subjectivity and political voice of the child develops in this complex spatial matrix which is intertwined with singing. The teachers that I interviewed were aware of the different kinds of work they currently do in the rapidly diversifying school compared to previous years. They reflected on the need for specific education for working in culturally diverse schools and developing specific tools to help in their everyday work. Indeed, singing as a cultural tool can be seen to help the intercultural professional development of teachers. My study indicates, however, that to fully utilize the potential of singing requires understanding singing beyond learning as an existential, social, and even political phenomenon. As a whole, this research shows that more attention should be given to singing as a powerful activity and affordance that can bridge home and school experiences. As I have suggested, the school could function as a bridging organization for making connections with children's experiences within their ecologies. Children create singing spaces outside school, but are also willing to create them inside the school as they can, even in secret. Children recognize the empowerment, freedom, trust, and enjoyment present in singing spaces. However, singing spaces can also be spaces of confrontation, dissensus, and resistance, and these spaces can help the children put forward their political voice. According to this dissertation, children's singing does not have one single universal cultural meaning. Respecting the plurality of children's participation and engagement is the first step to making children's political voices visible. The study clearly shows that children's singing cannot be separated from the social world and its complex power relations where their agency and voice are produced. Given the increasing cultural diversity in schools in Finland, it is becoming more and more necessary for educators and society to promote profound discussions around children's experiences and meaning-making, and to develop sensitivity towards the child's voice and agency. This dissertation has taken a step forward, taking seriously the National Child Strategy in Finland and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, by responding to the urgent need to consider children's perspectives, especially in critical issues that affect their lives. Allowing children's voices to emerge in school contexts in our culturally diversifying society means listening to the voices of all children, including the silent voices of children who belong to minorities, and the silent voices of the children who choose not to be seen or heard, even when they are offered possibilities of participation. The policy implementation, along with the new challenges in culturally diversifying and socially changing societies, requires, however, supporting the work of classroom teachers and music educators towards a new understanding of what singing for children means. Children should be listened to and respected for who they are. In other words, acknowledging their intrinsic worth as human beings. Children wish for their voices to be heard in a world where they have no or minimal power. To this end, singing can be a powerful cultural tool and affordance. As I see it, singing can potentially open up spaces of connection and caring based on trust and freedom, both inside and outside the classrooms, spaces in which children can resist inequalities and injustice, contributing in this way to developing a more democratic and socially responsive music education.